All right, so we'll start the Great Barrington Planning Board meeting for Thursday, January 11th. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020, over suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and Governor Healy's March 29, 2023 revised order extending remote participation by all members in any meeting of a public body. This meeting of the planning board will be conducted both in person and via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend can be found on the town's website. For this meeting, members of the public and committee members may attend the meeting in person, or for those who wish to do so remotely by following the instructions on the agenda. For those who are not in person, every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In addition, pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 20F, after notifying the chair of a public body, any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of a meeting of the public body, or may transmit the meeting through any medium. At the beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of any such recordings. Any member of the public wishing to speak at the meeting must receive permission of the chair. Listings of the agenda items are those that are reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. And finally, per section 241(1) of the town code, except for procedural and housekeeping matters, town residents shall have the right to address a board on any item that requires a vote at a time before a board votes on that item. Such residents will be allowed as much time as the proponents of an item is permitted to have. We are all here in person.
And we're not in Alford.
And we're not in any other towns. That's good. All right, so let's see. We'll do roll call vote just for Kim. No, okay. Okay.
Everybody's home.
So first item on our agenda is the Form A for 453 Stockbridge Road, and Pedro, you are recusing yourself from this matter?
No,
No, you're not recusing
I
yourself.
just want,
he's clarifying.
for the record,
Yeah,
that for both this item and for any discussion on co-housing,
yes,
that I had been previously employed by the CDC to
Okay.
do some work for them concerning this project, which is also going to potentially be operated as co-housing. So I just wanted to let everybody know that I've filled out and filed with the town clerk a conflict of interest form
yeah,
stating that I'm no longer under their employee, that I can act in a
you've
objective.
disclosed,
Yes,
you've done the disclosure,
exactly.
okay,
Appearance
there's-
of conflict of interest, not a conflict.
but you don't actually have the
Right,
conflict of
right.
interest.
Well, I don't have a conflict of interest because I'm no longer employed,
Yeah.
Okay,
nor am I being acting as agent or anything.
Okay, thank you. All right, we've got that on the record. Anybody else have any items on this? Okay, all right, so do we have someone who is explaining the Form A, or are we?
You want to introduce yourself and your survey?
is one of those yours?
Yes,
Kim or
Tim?
Michael?
Yeah,
Sure, yes.
Tim was there.
Tim Guest?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay,
So I guess if Tim is up there, he can explain it.
Oh,
okay,
well, yeah, it's just, there was 3 lots. It's being subdivided into, it's kind of like the deed lines are,
Tim.
Yep.
Could you please, just for our record, could you state your full name and the application you're representing? This is,
Yeah.
Yeah,
name's Timothy Shipus. I work for Hilltown Land Surveys in Covington.
Can you spell your last name, please? For the
Yeah,
record?
SHUIPIS. So.
okay, thank you very much.
So should I explain what's happening here?
Yes, please, thank you.
So, David Thorne owned 3 separate lots. We're dissolving the existing deed lines and just creating 2 lots. The lot that has the inn on it, and then a separate lot down south. And you can see it's labeled parcel B, and it's, those 3 different lots with the 3 different book and pages on it.
Okay,
And it all has, plenty of frontage, plenty of area, both of them do. They have frontage on both roads.
So this is a combination, I guess, to create the new larger parcel.
Yeah, it's kind of simultaneously, putting all those lots together and then separating them out as just two separate lots.
Gotcha, okay.
I mean, it's explained on the plan on note 7, or no, sorry, note 6. That's just 3 lots, exactly what I just said.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and oftentimes there is a notation as to the current zoning as well as a little schedule. So you have note 5 that says it's a B2 a transitional business zone,
Right.
and I don't remember offhand what the minimum lot size
The
is.
width, for dwellings, it's 43,560, for other permitted use, it's 20,000 square feet,
20,000 square feet for use other than residential.
other than residential. The width is 150, the minimum front is 50 for dwellings, 40 for other.
Okay,
Parcel B is more than,
And it has the frontage,
right,
it's got more than.
and it's got the area, so.
yeah, parcel B is such an interesting shaped lot. That's totally not
Yeah.
germane, but
Yeah.
but interesting to me.
Yeah.
All right, does anyone have any questions for the applicant?
So David, you're keeping this lot
Mhm.
and you plan to develop it? Possibly?
Possibly,
Okay,
having a discussion with my daughter.
okay.
Great, anybody else? Hearing no other questions, we have a motion to endorse.
So moved?
Thank you, Jonathan. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Malcolm. Any further discussion?
Oh, one thing.
Yes.
Tim, you should run spell check because separate is misspelled twice.
It's probably didn't get caught by spell check because I did run spell check. Wait, it was separate.
Separate has a rat in it.
Oh, yeah, yep, I see
That's how I
that.
always remember it. A rat.
Yep.
Separate.
I will
helps
check
you
my
work?
spell check.
Anyway,
Separate rat.
okay.
I haven't heard that one, that's pretty good.
You'll never forget.
I will.
Okay, you're welcome.
I could spell it like this.
We have a motion and a second, and any further discussion about spelling or any other things? No.
We don't have the Mylar, don't we?
I believe, yeah. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Do we have a sharp? I may have one. Oh, correct.
Yes, we have them here. Do you need anything?
Yeah, how many paper copies do you need? Chris?
I just need 2, but however many are there.
You want me to pull?
I don't know, I don't know how many papers, but I wasn't.
No, we'll make it easy for you.
But you can recycle.
That's what I started to say, but then I forget. Well, that's finished.
Where's the space?
Yeah, it feels like a Canada.
Like something.
Yeah, it's not the-
Look at that, so.
Sure.
See it?
Yeah.
It smells like something's burning, doesn't it? Your toaster oven going?
Well, somebody's here.
Okay.
It smells like a pizza and a toaster oven.
That it doesn't look.
Yeah.
What is it?
It's somebody's dinner. Somebody brought us dinner tonight. All right, we're all good with the Mylar.
Okay, thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Have a good
Mr.
night.
Brown.
Good night.
Sealed, right?
Thank you too.
Thank you all.
You wanna-
Good to see you, David.
You wanna just leave
Good to
it
see
up?
you.
Good luck with your sale.
Now, and then we'll.
Do I get a copy of that or 5 later?
Isn't there an extra?
Yeah.
Yeah.
one of the hard copies.
You can have them.
So who's gonna file the Mylar?
okay, if it's not signed, that's fine, I have copies.
Okay.
Can you take the sign?
The signed copy.
Yeah, I know, but does the Mylar?
Yeah.
Yeah, but usually the.
I just filed it downstairs.
Did it have a rubber band on it when it came in?
Yes.
So you give me the Mylar too?
Yeah.
Yeah, don't forget to record it.
I'm gonna do that in the moment. Although it need my
There you go.
moving out after 40 years.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of work.
Ciao.
Yeah, good luck.
All right, our next item on our agenda are the minutes of December 14th. Do we have a motion to approve as amended?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Malcolm. Thank you, Jonathan. Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, unanimous. Third item on our agenda is housing opportunities discussion. This is an ongoing agenda item, sort of evolving from time to time. First item is discussion for allowing co-housing. And I apologize, I think, Chris, you sent us some draft language and I don't have it in front of me. Is that something that you can share on screen?
I can, my computer decided to install some updates, so we'll just have to wait.
Well, it's fine. Let's see. Well, so why don't we move past that then? And, we can have a discussion on the, multi-unit residential development. Pedro sent us some proposed language. Pedro, do you want to introduce this and then we can?
Sure.
We can, when Chris is ready.
I'm 30% there.
Okay. You know how we are when we get into these discussions. I'm sure we'll discuss for a long enough time.
30%. Well, as we just discussed last time, I was able to put together some language, and I apologize for doing it, or for getting it to you at the last minute. This is just some draft language that we can review about the intentions that we've been discussing for certain parts of town. It's based on a previous proposal I did a couple years ago, but I just kind of slimmed it down a little bit. And then at the end of it, I had some leftover incentive bonuses for affordable housing, since we've been talking about affordable housing, and I just put it in there just so that we can discuss if there's any interest. I don't really know if it's necessary, but if there's some interest
For other
in,
people to see or not?
excuse me?
Can this go?
No,
that-
not at the
that-
time because,
Chris
Chris gotta put it up.
trying
So,
to do it.
so we will share, but, just in terms of like general intent, I had understood from our last discussion that our intent was not so much mixed use, but more housing specifically, like multi-unit housing. Is mixed use? Mixed use was, I remember, was from the discussion from a couple years ago, so,
It's
both,
right? Multifamily and.
well, that's what's proposed here, but I thought our subsequent evolved discussion was just focused on multi-unit housing.
But this is an overlay. Yeah, there wasn't an overlay. So this expands it to South Main Street.
Maybe it'd be helpful to step back and somebody introduce what the purpose of this is and where it might apply. What's the initial concept?
Well, the initial idea that I brought before the planning board was to allow for by right development of multi-family housing in certain parts of town, particularly along Route 7. And so as is outlined in this proposal, we would propose to allow that type of development from Brookside Road to Maple Avenue, and then skip downtown. And then from around where Belcher Square is to where the Thornwood is. Anywhere along that route. and lots that are immediately adjacent to Route 7. So the idea is that, you know, those lots are, in some cases, they're big enough, they're all within walking distance of some form of social or cultural amenity. And they are also serviced by town infrastructure.
Thank you.
So I mean, the mixed use portion is just something to consider. I mean, I don't know why we wouldn't want to consider it, given that it's a major commercial corridor, and mixed use will obviously have a housing component as part of it. So I thought, why not?
Okay, I guess I want to clarify. So at the last meeting, what we discussed was some form of relief through a zoning mechanism to allow for multi-unit housing whereby the process would be condensed or slimmed down to like the minimum we felt comfortable with, so as to remove impediments of time and soft costs and thereby hopefully incentivize multi-unit housing development, right?
Sure.
I think that's different, right, than what's proposed in the text that's been provided to us. So I just want to make sure I'm coming at this from the right understanding.
I mean, that's the general goal, and the means to get there would be to allow this type of development by right.
I say this because I am more supportive of finding a way to incentivize multi-unit housing, and not as excited about giving any kind of like by right pass to a lot of commercial and mixed use, only because I think there are potentially more impacts to be evaluated. And I'm hesitant to like, I think we have to figure out like what a process would look like
Well,
that would strike the right balance between building and code compliance.
But Randy, I think mixed use builds community better than just multifamily housing. And you know, I think it's a perfect place for it.
I think too, we should consider that about around a quarter of the area that's being proposed already allows mixed use by right.
You're talking about the footnote that's in our use table.
The MXD,
If it includes
the MXD allows it by right.
the MXD, and we actually have gotten a lot of feedback from the community about the mixed use component, right? So Manville being the example.
But that was seen as using mixed use as an end run around them to get to the multifamily, and this would preclude that because you wouldn't need it.
You know,
You can do it either way.
all of our discussions to this point have been about allowing residential development by right, not commercial development by right. I'm really reluctant. I mean, it's taken me a long time to be convinced that, you know, that we have a housing issue that can be solved by allowing things by right, housing by right. And maybe I'm coming around to your arguments, but this is commercial development, and I'm not in favor of it. If we do have the MXD, well, we've been bitten by it once. It's probably not a decent thing to do. So that's where I'm coming from. So it's going to take convincing to get me around, but I'm only one vote. So
Are we voting on this tonight, or are we
No.
just discussing
No,
it?
Oh,
But
no.
We're just
tonight
discussing.
would have to be
This
worked out.
is discussion, yeah,
It's got all-
this is discussion. I just wanted to like get us all on the same page in terms of like, what's the purpose and objective? Because it has, I thought it was just residential. I did not think it was also commercial. And I hear what you're saying, Jonathan. It's just, I don't know that I'm comfortable with giving I don't know, I haven't had enough time to really think about it completely. So my initial reaction is like, let's take a pause here. I think Malcolm, to your point, we had some discussions about there not being any site plan or special permit requirement, and I think we probably need to look at the table of uses and see how this really changes anything materially. But the text has site plan review still required.
Well, mixed use is allowed by right in zones where commercials allowed by right, it looks like. In business zones. Yeah, and the MXD.
Pedro, do you wanna just like keep stepping through those sections? Cause I mean, what,
I think I just wanna, before you get
Yeah.
off of Malcolm's point, mixed use is not allowed by right in the B2 zone.
Right,
Unless it has that affordable housing component.
right. We have the B, the HVC, the B2X, B3, MXD. And the I
So
zone.
that's
Yeah.
specifically what this draft would address was.
But a bowling alley is okay by right?
So
In a residential zone?
Yeah, in the B2 zone.
Good question. Is it?
So the code was there.
20,000 square feet of retail is.
I'm just sitting here being not an architect or being a newbie to the planning board. I would sure love to see any effort at visualizing this. We're talking about infill. We're talking about the extensions of the town. And we're talking about now what kind of mixed use are we talking about? I can think of beautiful areas around the world where there's beautiful mixed use, and it would be great if we had it. But I'd like to see some, I don't know if we can ever do this, and somebody would like to put it on, it's just like, show us what it would look like with infill.
wait, so are you able to display those zoning, map for the town on screen?
The zoning map?
Yeah.
Sure.
Where everything's located.
Yeah, just so we understand where this is being proposed.
But I'm going back just to visualization. I don't know how that, I know it's a lot
You
of work.
mean like renderings of what?
Renderings,
Yeah, I don't think we're anywhere near that at all
I
right
was
now.
hoping some architect floating around
Well-
would take it on themselves to maybe play with it and give us a,
That's a big ask. That's a really big ask.
I know.
Yeah. I think to start with the zoning map and to see what parcels are even available to be developed. You know, I mean, if we're looking at Route 7 from Brookside Road to Maple Ave, so that's the stretch of Route 7
Should be a lot of redevelopment.
from Windrush Commons up to
Yeah,
the
I don't think you can
roundabout.
just look at vacant lots, because I think there'll be, if this were to pass, I think.
that's,
Thing, though,
that's the whole,
Jonathan, like-
that's the whole point.
That's the
is
whole
to
point.
Develop what's already been developed in lots that are underproducing,
Who's
undervalued.
doing that? We just
Nobody right now, because it's really hard to do. I mean, this is part
Because
this
you
is
have-
obviously part
already
of that
have
problem.
this zoned as, like, to your point, much of this is already zoned for mixed use. Nobody's done anything with it.
Well, it's my opinion that part of the problem why that hasn't happened is because of the process, which is what I'm trying to address with this proposal.
So which is why, you know, when I talked to you before, I said, well, if it's process and we're really focused on residential, why don't we look at expanding the use of the footnote 2 under residential uses where we currently say that a special permit is required, but if there is affordable component Let's see, it says, footnote 2 of our table of uses says in any development containing 9 or more residential units, if at least 10% of those units are dedicated as affordable to households earning not more than 100% of the area median income, that development shall be permitted by right. So, and it goes on, but that's the gist of it. So, you know, can you achieve the same thing with a focus on housing by just expanding footnote 2?
What does this expand to mean?
meaning.
Extending it to other districts, because right now it's
Other-
only,
Footnote 2 is specifically addressing
For
affordable
affordable
housing.
housing, or are you expanding it beyond affordable?
it's 9 units or more, but it's only being applied in the B2.
But it's, again, it's only for affordable housing. It's
A
not,
percent affordable, not all affordable.
right. So if you do that percentage in affordable housing, then you can do it by right.
Only in the B2, and I'm
That's
saying, why not?
totally different than the proposal that I'm proposing, which is any kind of housing. Affordable, not affordable, market rate, whatever it is.
I feel like we're talking past each other right now. I'm not disagreeing that it could be any type of housing, but have that affordable component, 10% affordable. So if you were gonna do a 30-unit, 3 of the units.
It's inclusionary zone, basically. It doesn't.
Well, why did, we got this passed last year, why did we include this? It seemed like the board
This
liked
is-
it then, why are we about basing?
We're not about basing. It was something that, you know, came out of our discussions and was, in my opinion, better than do nothing. So I pushed it through. But it's, again, nobody's gonna do it because you have to build units that have price restrictions. And it's very hard to make that stuff
Or
work.
limits the kind
in
of
the
developers who are gonna do it.
I don't know that that's true. I don't know that that's true.
You know that what's true.
That small bit of inclusionary requirement is an impediment. I mean, who have we heard that from?
Well, I mean, it's just really hard to do inclusionary zoning. You can't even get it done in New York City. It's not a real vehicle that works very well. In New York City, I mean, you know, if you're doing units with hundreds of units in them, developers talk the city down from 30% to 10% all the time because they can't make it work.
I guess I just don't see what we're gaining with this MXO. I don't,
Clarity.
I obviously need to read through it since I got it
No, no,
today. I
it's
didn't have a chance
clarity
to read
in the
through it.
process of development. What the special permit does across the board, it creates uncertainty for anybody who wants to do anything.
Yeah.
It's that simple. You can talk to whoever you want. I mean, I've been talking to people across town about this. And it's a problem. And it's not just this town. I mean, I sent you guys at least this week, a couple of articles outlining how other towns are recognizing that it's a problem.
Cause you have to pour so much money into it and then you're doing that with a lot of doubt. You don't know the result,
With risk.
so.
I do hear this, but I mean, we are in Massachusetts and other towns have similar requirements. Are there builders that are building in other towns rather than Great Barrington because it's easier, it's easier to build? or-
No, nobody's building anywhere. It's
Yeah,
a
and
national
It's
housing
not, it's
problem.
not a Massachusetts, it's not a Great Barrington problem, it's not a Massachusetts problem. But I mean, if we eliminate any kind of review of commercial development, in this, and I'm not saying commercial development at all, but I mean, in this particular instance,
Chris, do you mind putting up the?
what does that buy us except, lowering our standards, I think,
I think, you know, two comments to your comment. When you say it's not a Great Barrington issue or Massachusetts issue, it's a country issue, I think that makes it our issue too. And the
but
other
we
thing
can't
is,
solve.
I don't think we're trying to solve anything.
What are we trying to solve then? Why are we
We're
making a
trying-
change?
Well, you have to, in order to try to come up with solutions and answers, you have to try different things. And this is an attempt to do that. My other question would be, what actually do we gain from a special permit process? I don't think we ask ourselves enough about that. Projects that come in, I mean, if you look at the Searle School Hotel, I mean, that's a special permit process, and I don't know that anybody's happy with what came out of that. And so what wound up happening in the big picture is that a lot of money was spent, a lot of time was spent, a lot of community sort of fracturing was caused by the whole thing. And in the end, you know, we get this building that I'm not sure anybody's happy with. We don't, I mean, they just get other opinions, I mean, or other examples of special permits, like what do we actually gain from it?
North Plain Road.
The only thing that we
They
get,
granted a special permit on North Plain Road without ever discussing the special permit.
the only thing that we lose is the ability to say no to things. And that's the gist of the problem.
Well, what we lose is, citizens' input into the process, into the development of the town.
No, you don't.
Well, you know, I
What do you
mean,
mean you don't?
Huh?
What's the mechanism?
We guarantee it in our every meeting.
We do guarantee it at every meeting, and we do have the provisions, it's the third one that I read, 240-1, that does provide for public response. I think
And-
Malcolm's making the point that they're,
But, you know, we also have this, Malcolm. This is part of a community process. And when we,
What's that?
this is the zoning bylaw.
Okay.
And this, and everybody should, you know, if anybody's interested in development, they should know this. And what the special permit does is throw this out the window. Because you can go to places where, you know, like, come to the B2 and put a proposal before the town for something that otherwise would go. I mean, it's a special permit process, so it's saying, okay, you can do the development here, the zoning is outlined. Somebody presents a project that meets the zoning, but it can be changed.
So I'm not gonna let that Searle School thing rest, because I think the special permit process in Searle Schools was exactly what kept them from tearing that thing down and building up a wooden hotel with 40 or more people, more than 40 rooms, without restoring anything historical. I think this special permit process for Searle School worked, actually. There were a lot of things going on in the background, and there are still a lot of things going in the background because nothing's been done. That's what people are unhappy about, and nothing's been done. I don't know who's unhappy about what was finally permitted.
Well, respectfully, you should take another look at the last project that came through here. And ask yourself, is this really doing what you're saying, which is preserving the school? They're basically preserving a facade that's never
Yeah,
gonna use.
well, that's the best we can do.
what, I think
But
we're
we went through the
deviating
process.
from the
The process
discussion.
was there.
I just think, listen, in the end, I think it's a question that's worth asking. Is what do we actually gain and what do we actually lose from the process?
Yeah.
And what I'm still trying to understand is, do we need this and all this text to achieve a goal of trying to incentivize housing in the community? I'm not seeing yet how this improves the process. And is there a simpler way than this with extra design standards and parking requirements? Like, can we just adjust the table of uses and in the row, look at the zones that are impacted?
Well,
Like-
this was only talking about the properties that abut, right? And so it wasn't the whole zones.
It was this, yeah, that was only,
It just-
the overlay district was just
It's
on Route 7.
This is why I
just
wanted
the
to
abutting
get a
properties.
parking map.
There's an intentional element of design in that it is a corridor. And it should be developed at a higher density than everything that's around it
It's,
in order to achieve a walkability.
well, this is why I'm suggesting we look at the zoning map, because I don't know if we need this to achieve what you want to achieve. When we look at the parcel map against the zoning, those parcels are already called out as B2 parcels, for instance, right? They're already called out as B2X parcels. Like, why do we need to overlay on top of them? Can we just simply look at the table of uses and adjust the row from SB to something else?
I
Like,
don't
do we?
think so, because
Why not?
well, because, for example, the B2 is not just a strip up Route 7, it encompasses many other lots.
But why not let those lots have the same benefit? They have the same, they're walkable, they have infrastructure.
I mean, if you want to propose that, I mean,
This
trying to
seems
I'm
so
trying to be-
complicated.
well, to me, it doesn't seem as
Well, you've
complicated.
spent a lot of time thinking about it, so you've been able to rationalize through the whole thing.
So I think there's a few different discussions. One between Brandy and Pedro is if it applies, where should it apply? And one that Malcolm is discussing is if it applies, should it be by right? And he doesn't agree with that. So I think there's two discussions and you are circling both of them.
And not striking on any of them.
You're circling. You're not splitting.
Question,
Of course.
what's the negative downside of having it by right?
Yeah, that's what we're discussing.
Yeah, that's a good question. And from my perspective, I don't disagree philosophically with Pedro that by right, we have a very robust code. We've been trying to incorporate design standards in it. We have all these other things. My concern stems from lack of capacity at the town level to actually see that get implemented consistent with our code. Case in point is the dermatology office, right? If I'm a developer and I come in to the building department and just get my permit and I gotta rely on the building official to really sit down and go through the zoning code and make sure everything is being met, I feel like that's a really tremendous burden on that office.
I think that's a very interesting example that you bring up, because what we're talking about failing at the dermatology office is the process. What they fail to adhere to is the site plan review, because the rest of it is built to the zone. The zone, the building height, the bulk, everything is built to the zoning. What they didn't get was the review, the process part of it.
Well,
We're talking about the door going in the wrong direction?
yes.
That's it, there's
With
nothing
that-
in the code that says that it's front, you have to have a
I
code.
mean, I just think as a community, and I think this is common in small communities, that the land development process relies on an army of volunteers, right? Because staff is limited. I mean, we can't send every application to Chris to have him go through it, and he would do a good job. I mean, he previews all of our applications as it is now, but I just don't think that that's a realistic ask.
So if somebody were to bring in a project to us, that would be by right. They bring it to us for site plan review. You're not suggesting that we wouldn't catch I mean, I know Jonathan was definitely catch any code infringement in that proposal,
And spelling.
and spelling errors on top of that.
Lack of north arrows.
So I know you're not suggesting that. I mean, if we have site plan review in there, they're gonna come in here, they're gonna have to adhere to.
And Brenda, I wanted to point out that he's proposing an overlay district. But it's not all of the B2 zone. It's only those lots that front on Route 7. There are other parcels in the B2 zone that, front on Reed Street or
And the
Brookside or
MXD,
whatever.
and the MXD as well.
And there are portions of the B2 zone that are downtown, which Pedro's overlay excludes.
Right.
So the overlay Pedro is not the same geographic area as the B2 zone.
Right.
So that's one clarification. That's
Brandy,
the geographic clarification.
Brandy, when you started talking about this, there's some emphasis on affordable housing and housing as opposed to commercial development. And there was some concern that we wouldn't, with this expanded overview or overlay, that there might be some issue with being able to have more developers that are dealing with commercial, those social and cultural additives to the deal. So that the emphasis shifts from housing to commercial. Is that happening here?
If we look at the suggested language in 15.4, use is permitted by right. for projects within the proposed overlay would be multifamily residential, including live work, and mixed-use projects, including non-residential uses where at least 25% of the street level and the street face are for buildings with the following non-residential uses: offices, retail, excluding or including banks, but excluding stores with drive-through windows.
That language all comes from B3.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think you could just, we don't need all of those in there. You could just say, as allowed under the underlying zoning.
And we could also have a percentage of what is commercial and what is residential. So 75% residential, 25% commercial, something like that. So that it's not a commercial project.
Yeah, but, I mean, there's a lot of commercial that's allowed in the B2 by right. So.
20,000 square feet.
And you're allowed, and,
Yeah.
you know, if somebody wants to do something according to the B2, they can opt to do it.
So why are we, what are we liberalizing here?
The
If it's
special
already
permit
by
process.
right.
The special permit process for housing.
Right, but why? So mixed use is not allowed by right in
So
No.
mixed use is allowed by right in,
MXD.
hang on. So in our table of uses, in the B, in the HVC, in the B2X, in the B3, in the MXD, and in both the I zone. And it's allowed with special permit in the B1, the B2, and the B2A. This is why I need to look at the map, because I don't remember where all those are.
the.
B2X is state road.
Do you wanna look at the map and ask another time, but the discussion keeps,
I know, it's
just
just,
let me know what you'd like to see.
I'm going back and forth on my iPad, so if anybody else feels like they need a map.
I'd like to see a map.
The B is downtown. The HVC, I think we know what the HVC
What,
is.
what I'd like to do, if you don't mind, Pedro, is just looking at our zoning map, what we currently have in your proposed overlay, and I understand that you're talking about parcels that front on Route 7. In the south is the MXD and the B2, right?
Yep.
MXD is already mixed use by right.
Mhm.
And the B2 is by special permit. So the only gain, and this is the exercise I need to do, is in the B2, an alleviation,
Yes, sorry, you're right.
an alleviation of process
And that's
in the
huge.
B2. Maybe, can we just work through the exercise real quick?
Mhm.
Okay. And then north is the B2X, the R1B. Maybe it's not the R1B because nothing fronts on it. Nothing
B2X is not part of the overlay.
Because it's Belgium.
Well, I guess there are some.
Well,
parcels.
there are,
There are.
perhaps the corner, so what's the intention there?
Again, there's no relief because it's already allowed,
Right, okay, so B2X,
but there, I guess,
B2 and B2A. So it would affect the B2 and the B2A.
and the B2X would get multifamily relief because
So again, I'm just asking, like, do we need to go through this overlay? Is there not a reason we should just change this row A7 to yes?
because the overlay is strictly for those lots that front Route 7. If we go to the other, you know, in both the B2s and in the MXT, there are lots that don't, a lot of lots that don't.
I appreciate you humoring me in like the exercise though, because like, let's look at it in the map and see what is it really affecting? Like, if there was more mixed-use development on Christie Road, is that a problem? I don't really think it is. Like,
It could be on Reed Street or Brookside.
should we stay at the north end of town since we're looking at that right now? And then we can do the same exercise at this.
That's where,
I
that's where
want
most
to
of,
ask the
that's where-
question,
that's where
right?
most of the parcels are that don't front on Route 7.
Is it the south end?
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's how
Can we
we
go
ended up.
south?
Just.
Sorry.
something to keep in mind.
You mind driving us to the south part of town? No, I can see it. It's totally fine, thank you.
So a lot of large scale development in the south end of town in B2 zone will likely either trip the floodplain special permit requirement or the water quality special permit requirement. Unless it's already impervious surface and already built up in some way.
What's the blue dots?
The water quality.
Water quality.
So if there's
That
already
doesn't really help
impervious
anybody.
surface on that lot and you're not going out anymore, you're just going up, it might not trigger that special.
I mean, how much
Fine.
relief is it then?
It's a bigger, because you're only concerned with, again, recharge of that area. You're not concerned with other things. Now, I understand that it can be challenged because it's still a special permit. Site plan can also be challenged, but there is some clarity as to what you can actually do. The water quality is something that can be engineered and designed, as you obviously know.
Why is Reed Street B2? What's the history on that, Jonathan? Do you know?
It's on the map,
I mean, it's
and Brookside as well.
Brookside, yeah. I mean, the fairgrounds is all floodplain, that's not gonna be developed, period, so. Then you've got,
Well, it's commercially zoned now.
it's not developable, I don't care what anybody says. It's
There's a lot of footprints on that floodplain.
not really. I don't know, I mean, aside from Reed Street. I don't really see why we
So
wouldn't.
what's what would be, okay, let's say,
I'm just trying to find a way to
Yeah.
simplify this.
but let's say we put a Y on the B2 for
Yeah.
mixed use. What would be the harm down here? Okay, Reed Street is already part of a business district, a commercial district. So allowing mixed use on Reed Street wouldn't seem to be a hardship, right?
It's all residential though,
Except for the marijuana store.
but that's on Route 7.
Okay. It is residential.
So why not rezone it R1A or something? I mean,
R3.
I don't know the yeah, we've got a lot of multifamily already there. I don't know, I'm not sure this is where we wanna be, it just seems like we should be able to do this in the table of uses.
Why did we stop the MXD where we did?
Because Silver Street is the south boundary of the MXD, the next parcel is a cemetery,
Yeah.
so mixed use there might upset the
It's already
residents.
mixed use.
And then it's pretty extensive,
Then the big
Commercial,
Y and
which
the,
has all been recently invested.
okay.
And on the east side of the street is the fairgrounds.
Fairgrounds.
It's not, there's no real development potential there. And then south of that is, the senior housing, the smart growth district.
Right.
So mixed use down in here just
Wouldn't have any meaning.
didn't seem viable at all, but mixed use in this area of the MXD was more of a reflection of what has traditionally taken place on the 7th corridor.
But it's also reflective of what was there.
What was there?
Yeah.
That's why it's mapped in that way.
I mean, Pedro,
Hmm.
go to bat for yourself here, like, what do we gain in the B2? Cause B2A, I don't know, I mean, I am almost leaning more towards just proposing that you put a yes in B2 and B2A.
Well, not B2A is only the Thornwood.
Yeah.
You mean,
Well, I wrote B2A down for the northern extent because you had it extending up to Old South Bridge Road. I didn't know, like just south of that, not
no,
beyond
that's
it.
fair. It's where the idea is where Thornwood is, which is there.
we should probably do away with that zone anyway.
I know.
Because
okay.
there's only one viable property in it, and that's gonna be affordable housing,
Right,
and the rest is all state land and stuff.
The purpose has always been just to simplify the process and provide clarity of process and clarity of development. That's the purpose. That's what we gain wherever we do this.
Well, I think the mechanism that Randy's saying is provides more clarity than adding another.
No, I
overlay.
don't disagree. I didn't know that it was possible to take it that far.
We're gonna do it. We should just do it.
yeah, I mean, this was, I think it's good we're having this discussion now. I'd like us to kind of get to some sort of consensus, because we want to have a joint meeting with the select board at the end of the month to talk about housing issues. And, you know, if we're gonna make this kind of adjustment, I think we need to get their buy-in on it. We want to be collaborative, I think, in that respect. So, is there anything else, like from a bulk and area requirement, that you've looked at that this applies differently than the underlying zone?
I think it's fair to, but what I wrote in this is that the bulk and height would apply for the underlying zone.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's fair. I mean, the B2 is very generous, and as is the MXD. I think it's fair. I'm happy with it.
I'll take a question.
I'm sorry, from the public, couldn't see that, sure. Hi, Eileen.
Hi, I had a comment earlier and I meant to put my hand down, thought I had, sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. Do you still have a comment, or have we argued through it?
No. I have two comments, and they're related to previous comments that were made by you people. One is that I think it's a mistake to assume that any board, including a planning board, will always have intelligent, concerned, and experienced members. I think we probably can all think of boards in this town that have not had members like that. And the second is the comment that I thought one of the biggest reasons for not having special permits is that an abutter, for instance, could then not go to court to stop a development. And I wondered if a zoning bylaw can address that to protect the rights of abutters.
I believe that land court already does. There's no reason why anybody can't put a lawsuit together against anything. They can challenge
They can
zoning
challenge
bylaws.
site plan review.
They can challenge anything.
Can't
There's nothing to.
I thought you could not challenge site plan review.
No, you
Yeah.
can.
He went to court.
You can challenge site plan review for sure. There's nothing in the books that says you can't. Let's just put it that way. And anybody, you know, what a challenge would do is to question the zoning. So if the zoning is in place, you could still challenge it, but it would be a hard pull to win a decision against what a town has outlined as their zoning. So anything is challengeable is my point. This doesn't preclude you from challenging anything. You can even challenge something that's by right. Nothing precludes an abutter from challenging anything.
But it would require having an experienced lawyer.
Well,
Well,
going to
so
court will-
it would require having an experienced lawyer if you're challenging site plan review or special permit.
Now, it's a little easier when you're going over well-traveled ground. However,
Thank you.
Thanks, Eileen.
I think it's a point. Go ahead. I'm sitting on a fence here. And, I think it'd be good to bring this back the next meeting and look at this and say, okay, well, how are we gonna do it?
Can there be homework assigned where people go back and think what can be done with the existing law that would reflect what
Yeah.
Pedro is proposing here?
Yeah, one of the things, as I understand it, a few years ago, I mean, maybe only 2 years ago, didn't the legislature pass a law that made it more difficult, or at least more costly to challenge a housing special permit in land court? I thought they had to put up bonds now and,
The court can require an appellant to put up a pretty sizable bond to pay for the process fees.
yeah.
And the attorney's fees.
um,
It's not automatic.
Optional.
No, but I
The court
thought it
can
was,
tell it.
I thought it was designed to kind of discourage frivolous
Yes.
lawsuits that are just intended to kill a project without really any chance of, and I think I think the new law requires for housing challenges, if they lose the challenge, they have to pay the fees for the town.
That's right.
So I don't know what our experience has been in the last couple of years in terms of special permits, or people challenging special permits. I can't think of any that,
Oh, well, Manville,
Manville was before
Right.
this.
Uh,
And Manville, by the way, was not a special permit, right? They were challenging the
was.
site.
that was
permit.
what is.
They challenged the water quality protection special permit.
Oh, was that special permit here? So I mean, again,
Yeah.
any special permit can be challenged, you know?
And Tom Doyle's project got a site plan review
Yeah,
challenge.
right,
Challenge.
that was challenged, the site plan review.
It took him a while to
Yeah.
get it. To solve that issue too. And a lot of money.
Yeah, but I think, yeah, housing things are now, less likely to get, just frivolous lawsuits, but I don't know what the experience in the state has been since.
I think it depends on your neighbors,
Yeah.
right? Chris, would you,
You're right.
Please.
That's how well you-
are you able to bring up the table of use regulations? That first page that shows the residential uses? It just, if we were to sort of test here, looking at row 3, which is dwelling, multi-unit, and then we've got 4 to 8 and 9 or more. And then mixed use, which is row 7. Thank you very much.
So
Yep,
this one,
yes. So if in the, I guess we're looking at the MXD, the B2X and the B2 and the B2A, so. What do we have now? So right now, in the B2, up to 8 units is by right for multifamily. And then it is a special permit for 9 or more units and for mixed use.
It's the same for all 3 districts.
Is it, you're looking at that quickly?
B2,
I think
B2X and MXD, yeah.
Although the 4 to 8 units,
But it doesn't make any sense that we allow 20,000 square feet of retail by right, and yet we make mixed use a special permit in that same zone.
I'm past arguing that point, Jonathan. No, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying, like, let's test out what it would mean for it to be a Y.
Yeah, no,
Instead.
I agree. I agree with that.
And then if we were thinking about making 9 or more units a Y and 4 to 8 was still a special permit, well, that doesn't really make sense either.
No,
So in the case of the B2A, I mean, do we think about just removing that entirely?
I think Jonathan's suggestion is right with the B2A.
We don't need it. It's nowhere.
East side will never be developed.
The
and-
east side that's not
protected.
conservation land?
Yeah,
Oh, it is.
it'll never be developed.
Oh,
And then the other side
it's
is.
Thornwood.
and it would
So we could make
become
Thornwood part of the B2.
B2?
Or,
And the other
Or it could be-
should be,
R4?
R4, yeah.
or R2, I mean, there's R2 and R1B,
They
but
went back to when the Wards owned that property and they were trying to develop it or something.
David told me the whole story.
We should, well, let's see what we're gonna do about communal,
Yeah.
living before we, in the zones, before we decide what the V2A should become.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to put the, Thornwood in a zone that prohibits it.
I think it's a great idea though to get rid of it.
Okay, all right.
Not often we simplify our zoning.
When's the last time we-
I think.
The process is never simple to get there. Okay. So straw poll, how do we feel about talking with the select board about a modification to rows 3 and 7?
Will they understand?
I think it's incumbent on us to make a pitch.
I'd feel more comfortable discussing that at our next meeting, which I believe is before our joint meeting.
Okay, what information would you like us to gather in the meantime, Malcolm?
I'd like to be able to continue, I'd like to continue walking through, what we've just been walking through and saying, okay, what happens in each one of these things? So we don't get ourselves in a situation where we have, obviously conflicting,
Mhm.
notations on the zoning district, so.
Okay. Chris, recognizing that we're just sort of like coming up with this idea live, is there anything like immediately that gives you pause? In adjusting rows 3 and 7? For the B2 and I guess MXD we have to look at, right?
And B2F, right?
And
Those three?
B2X.
Yeah.
From SB to Y,
Where's the B2X?
and we can ask you again at the
Stable.
next meeting,
Okay.
but I'm just wondering if there's anything jumps out at you immediately, it's like,
No.
that's, okay.
It's a good step in the right direction.
Yeah, I want to thank you guys for engaging. I know it's a hard pull.
Yeah, I think we're getting there.
Okay,
I think several years ago at town meeting, when the board proposed, changing the B2, the map of the B2 zone on Stockbridge Road and some of the allowed uses, the planning board recommended that mixed use be allowed by right, and it was changed back on town meeting floor to special.
oh, I don't recall that.
I think that
I
was,
think it
the-
was Fred who did that.
I think that was the history there. 2017, 2018.
So we can take another pass at the runway then, huh?
Well, I can say, if it's of interest, that I've got buy-in from 3 select board members for this type of proposal already, so that pulls a lot of weight.
All right, well, we'll, as homework, if everyone could review the table of uses and just see if we're creating any inconsistencies, I think that would be helpful. A table amendment doesn't require us to have a lot of text or anything like that, so.
No, it's better. I mean, like I said, my proposal was intentionally modest.
And if it's a housing related proposal, it may just require a simple majority vote.
That was the other
Oh,
thing, it was
that's right.
changed in the same, at the same time.
That's right, yeah,
Right.
that's a good one.
Rather than a 2/3.
Mhm.
So does the
Does
mixed
mixed use
use
count
count as housing, yeah,
So,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm
So
not sure
then
it
it's-
does.
So
okay,
maybe if.
But you
this-
can
if we
do
decide
separate.
to- Yeah, if we decide to
Separate.
push
article.
those, we do
Separate
separate
articles.
articles, yeah.
okay, all right, are we good pausing the discussion on that item and going back to co-housing?
So soon?
Sorry. I'm not doing
Can
my
I,
job tonight.
before we start, just for your consideration, I actually have a book that I've had for a really long time that I pulled off my shelf the other day. and it's a history of collaborative housing. So yet another term
Another
that we can consider, and it describes exactly what we're discussing. So if co-housing is too generic or popular, maybe collaborative will
Okay.
be better. I don't know. Just a thought.
Chris, are your updates through? We talked long enough for your updates to be completed. And so you're able to share
What would you like to?
the co-housing?
Sure.
The one with Jonathan's corrections or additions, or go straight to yours?
It's probably better to go to.
I have a question on the first part, the very first purpose.
So I shared earlier this week, Monday or Tuesday, pursuant to the discussions that this board has had over the past few sessions, October, November, December, about co-housing or congregate living. The terms have gone back and forth, and I think at the last meeting in December, the planning board said, let's call it co-housing. And the board had a draft of language. I forget which member prepared it, and we did receive some comments from some special guests from the Construct and Berkshire Housing Development who reviewed it. And the board at the last meeting asked me to go back and condense all of that and put it into some language that you could consider tonight. So that's what I sent you the other night. Jonathan did bounce it back with a few comments, which you see on the screen in red line, strike through or underline. And so hopefully it addresses, it's pretty short, it addresses what co-housing is, the requirements, and some ideas of where it could be allowed in the different zoning districts. So that's what you have in front of you.
Cool. Okay, so in the purpose section, that last sentence, the co-housing units typically have no more than 2 persons per unit, makes sense. But then typically comprise of 1 or 2 rooms per unit.
Let's start with the definition, which is, where's the definition? Did you take it out?
It's right above, I guess, right above.
Oh, there it is, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But when you say typically, is it,
Co-housing residential building or buildings in which residential units consist of private sleeping quarters, but not private cooking facilities. So this is something that they considered for the one within, for example, converting sleeping rooms to actual residential units. Which other facilities like bathrooms, dining rooms, kitchens, laundry facilities are shared, for instance, in common with other residents.
Okay, so when we're talking in which residential units consist of private sleeping quarters. And so then when you go down to the purpose section, it says comprise 1 or 2 rooms per unit.
Typically.
Is that even
Can-
necessary though?
Can you clarify that for me? Because that to me means that you have a residential unit that typically has 2 or more rooms. Should it, if the intention is 2 or more sleeping quarters, as is outlined in the definitions, then that would make more sense to me. What it kind of says to me is that a residential unit has 1 or 2 rooms. I'm reading it like.
Room, as in a space within the bounded walls of a unit. There might be an office, there might be a bedroom,
So,
there might be a bathroom, there might be an office.
right,
there
but
might be a
is,
bedroom.
if you have 2 rooms per unit, is that really co-housing? Or is that just like a studio apartment or an
Well,
EDU?
not if it doesn't
Well, it
have
doesn't have
kitchen or
kitchen.
bathroom, if it's only an office and a bedroom, or a dressing room and a bedroom, or.
Do you guys say,
Well,
am I missing something?
No,
Or it's what I'm saying makes sense?
Okay.
What you're saying makes sense, but I think you're missing something.
but doesn't
No,
typically,
the common facilities, kitchens and whatnot are shared, that's the co-housing bit. But within a semi-private area, that's where you sleep, that's where you might work, telecommute.
Yeah.
I totally get it, I get that.
So what if it said, and typically comprises at least 1 room?
Well, it has
So
to.
I think,
It has to go past
Like, how we ended up with or two?
I think what
Right.
I'm having trouble with.
But I don't
the
know what
word
the objection.
Unit,
Yeah.
because it says co-housing units typically,
Yeah,
and what we're talking about is really like is a co-housing residential development typically have.
Oh, so this should be co-housing developments typically have.
units.
Oh, I
Yeah,
see.
Okay.
Okay, there, that's better.
Does that make more sense?
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're
Do
saying.
you see why?
Okay, yes.
If you could have just said that.
I didn't know what my problem was.
We're caught up with you now.
Okay, so then if we scroll, so purpose, we're all settled there, general, we're okay with general, right?
I got something on number 2 in requirements.
Okay, so then 811 3 requirements, area, everybody's okay with the minimum area, right? And no
That
matter,
was a question for June. She was wondering why that requirement.
Is there a
She wanted
code requirement? Building code.
That's
requirement?
exactly what it was. Yeah, it's not code requirement. It's, what was it, Board of Health? I think it's Board of Health
Okay,
requirement that you gotta have that size.
Okay.
She actually brought it, Eileen brought it up to me
okay.
and her guy with, what was the guy's name? Anyway, she brought it up to me.
Okay.
And that's why that's there, yeah.
so then number 2, management.
So all the co-housing developments projects shall file management plan with the building inspector. Shouldn't that be,
This is-
should file a management plan with the site, with the planning board as site plan review?
Yeah, I was gonna raise that as well, because first of all, I don't know what the building inspector is gonna do with the
Yeah.
management plan.
That should be something that we oversee, I think, if we're gonna require it. Cause he's not,
guess I'd like
your
to-
earlier point, he's not gonna do.
Yeah,
Well, I
no,
don't think
no,
you're
I-
overseeing it, but I think it has to be approved.
You're right, exactly.
When does it have to be filed? In the stage of the development process and with whom?
Site
It
plan.
could just be part of site plan review.
Then that's what I'm thinking,
Okay,
that it should come as part of site plan, and it should come via our
I can't
purview.
imagine the building inspector is gonna have time to go through a management plan and understand it.
And then my other question here is, the rest of it, is that too strict? Should this be and shall contain or can contain or should contain or?
Shall, it should
I
be
think it
shall.
has to
If it's
contain all
shall,
these.
it has to contain.
Shall
all
is
these
a
things?
must.
Yeah.
I don't,
Security,
based on what we heard, I think that's what's being done anyway.
even security, did they say security?
Security
So
procedures.
procedures, so we don't have any security procedures, or, everybody's issued a key fob, or, like, I don't think that has to be onerous.
Yeah.
Okay, just question.
No, we have necessary egress lights and locking doors.
Just a question.
But I do think that, if we're gonna remove the, requirement to have any manager, because
Which
Yeah, we've
they
taken that.
explained
Yeah.
was
Yeah, but-
necessary.
they still have managers, but not residents.
Residential
on site.
managers,
But
correct.
we've removed the whole requirement for manager.
No, we've got management policy.
We have a management plan, but if their management plan says, well, they have to call us up and we'll respond in 4 days if they have a broken something, then.
Well,
that's
they
their
may,
management.
they may have 2 people on staff
Yeah.
that take those calls, I don't.
But they have to, that has to be part of the plan.
I think that has to
Yeah.
be reviewed in the plan, and maybe at some point there's a template that we are comfortable with, and
Yeah,
See, but at Windflower, Construct manages it because they own it.
right.
But let's say that they didn't own it. They would either the owner would have to manage it themselves, or they would have to hire somebody to manage it, right? So the idea that there's a manager in charge there. I guess, what I'm getting at is that like the physical person manager is not as important as the plan of how things get resolved.
That's true, but what if somebody from out of state, South Carolina, buys a building up here, converts it into co-housing and says, okay, well, we're gonna manage it from South Carolina.
I,
Yeah, they
I
can-
hear what you're saying, and I think that's the concern I was having about having the resident manager, thinking that would like ensure
Yeah.
there is someone there, but hearing from our affordable housing partners, that creates a
Oh, I
hardship for
understand that
them,
totally. I'm
right?
not pushing for that.
But, and that,
Um,
I'm one, can we achieve the level of, tenant protection that we
Yeah.
want to by just, having the management plan in place?
Well, I think so, but we have to have some standards for the management plan.
So like
It's
a
just-
contract with
okay,
a local
what-
manager or
What's the
something.
response time if
Yeah.
somebody has a leaky?
It's like any apartment complex,
yeah.
right? Like you've got contract people that come and plow the
If,
parking lot. and-
if it's a reputable landlord, yeah.
Right. I
But
know,
if it's
we're
not a
concerned
reputable
about
landlord,
slumlords.
then, you know, all bets are off. So, but I think there has to be some standards for a management plan and, you know, what minimum level do we require for,
That, I think that's something that can be worked on, like
Yeah.
what does a management plan need to consist of?
Is it more than what we're already listing here?
I don't know that it's
I don't
more,
know.
but I think there's openness that Malcolm's concerned about that, you know.
Could that possibly be something that would be addressed at site plan review?
Because I
if we have a standard.
was thinking if we had like a template or something, or, you know, management plan, including,
A new town
I think
form.
the possibility of these happening, you know, in different iterations. You're not gonna have a single management plan and everyone's gonna be different. And I think let the applicant decide that and then they have to put it to
it
the,
just becomes subjective to the board that's reviewing
Yeah.
it, then, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, all right. Common bathrooms. I hate the idea of. common bathrooms.
You know, I have some grammatical issues with this.
I have some functional issues with it.
First of all, the common bathroom shall be single occupant use with provisions for privacy, period. So where do the common bathrooms for multi-occupant use come in?
It's the next one.
Well, except the sentence before said the common bathrooms have to be single occupant.
How about,
Four, it should say. four
yeah, that's a
single
good point, Malcolm.
Well,
Must
I'm
have
just-
these provisions for.
I'm not sure
So
why the
think of it-
either was stricken out there. I mean, they're either single occupant with provisions for
So, did you
privacy
start the either, John?
or common
Explain yourself.
bathrooms for.
Honest user, that was John.
Oh, Jonathan, I'm sorry. Yeah, this is perfect, is the way it's written.
Shall be either single occupant use with provisions for privacy or multi-occupant use separated by gender. Except for if me and my toddler are there and he's a boy, I wanna be able to take him into the bathroom so I can help him.
I agree. And what if there's someone's trans?
Or what if your partner has a disability and they need your assistance for showering, or what if you're really sick and you need someone to hold your hair?
You know, you wanna take it out? I don't care.
This is why
But I
I
mean,
want half bathrooms in units.
So, I mean, so what are we just thinking here, the by gender?
Single occupant. bathroom.
Yeah, I think it's the gender thing we're questioning now.
Yeah,
That's why the single occupant bathrooms are, because
yeah,
you can take
that-
a toddler in there, you
that-
can take anyone
mean,
you want in there.
that's what
No, you
I,
can't. It's single occupant.
But,
As long as the fire chief says that
That's gonna be
more than one
complicated.
person.
can we think about the bathrooms a little bit more
Now or later?
later? I mean, the trend I see with the architects we're working with on all sorts of development is multiple bathrooms, where each bathroom is a self-contained unit where all your various functions can occur, but maybe with like a water closet, right? So like if there were two people, you know, partners in that space, one could use the water closet and one could take a shower or whatever. So, but they're more like an individual, like residential bathroom.
I have a suspicion that the building code is gonna require that in the future.
Okay. I think even dormitories are kind of. moving in that
Yeah, dormitories
direction.
would-
Yeah,
That's what
because
I
it-
was thinking.
Because it makes the gender thing really easy.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And that's, I mean, I think that's, well, It's not what you see at schools universally, but some, the gender neutral bathrooms are single.
Well, I mean, is it
But-
too restrictive to say that, multi, occupant use still has to provide privacy for?
I don't want to walk in on a bunch of urinals against the wall.
Right,
That's.
Me neither.
No, that's.
Get over it.
yeah.
What are they keeping
Right.
down in,
I'm not-
Only in Santa Fe.
All the urinals.
I think this one needs a little bit, let's get
Okay.
past it.
But can we agree though that it might be better to lean towards separate sort of?
yeah,
They could all be in one room, but they each have to have privacy, whether it's a shower or
Uh-huh.
whatever it is.
So, and the last sentence in here.
Wait, you can't have a gang shower?
There's a,
It's not a locker
that's a thing of the fifties, man, the 1950s.
So,
Place where a shower should be.
the last sentence, the ratio of one for every 7 units, I think it should say at least one for every 7 units.
I don't know how to like. Where did we get that number? Cause I
don't know, but we can't specify one for every 7 units, because that's so specific, that means if they have.
Yeah,
And I just.
yeah,
I just-
at least.
I just wonder if this is gonna run into the building code.
Yeah, no, that's, what do you think?
I'll check that. I've never seen a requirement for, there has to be one.
Could you look,
Yeah.
Pedro, at dormitories and see what's used, and maybe we just use that, that language?
that doesn't seem low to me.
It does, but.
It seems low to me.
You need a whole lot more toilets than,
Especially in the morning and the evening. It's like-
you better
No.
have a bunch of half baths then.
For a lot of urinals.
And I kind of think there needs to be like a provision, like where common bathrooms are provided, because if a repurposed building already has an ensuite, I don't wanna make it seem like that has to be pulled out.
No.
And
You know, that
Right.
goes to the point that I made at the very end, is that the thing right now kind of reads for new construction, that we don't really address existing
Yeah.
buildings too much in this.
I mean, so maybe it's bathrooms, and then we say like,
Well, is anything in here that's proposed, would that adversely impact either Windflower or the Thornwood?
They all have bathrooms within,
They're all ensuite baths?
yeah, so no.
Except there's, I think Thornwood, doesn't that have one single occupancy? Like there's a hallway in between a unit and a bath? I thought there was
That's
one of
Thornwood,
those.
there might be, I don't remember in my experience of looking at that building if there was.
But
There might be one in the future, because I do believe their intention is to add 2 more units to the project, so there might be.
but we'll skip over bathroom and we'll sort of table that one until the next meeting. And then move down to common cooking and kitchen facilities, complete common cooking facilities.
But you know what, there is a suite, you're right, there is a suite there with 2 rooms that share. Anyway, sorry.
Complete common cooking facilities must be provided if any unit within the project does not have a kitchen. Okay. We're not expecting any unit to have a
So does
kitchen,
that-
right?
Does that kitchen then have to comply with the health code for a commercial kitchen?
No,
You sure?
Yeah. it's not commercial. Commercial kitchen is for selling stuff, for restaurants.
But the kitchens that are there in both those facilities do qualify.
Because the public restaurants.
Yeah,
Oh, interesting. I don't think they would have to though,
okay.
but if they're already there, then. you know. But in the future, I don't think you need to have. There's no reason, you're not serving to the general public, you're serving to the residents. Good question though.
Maybe someone should reach out to the Board of Health and ask them.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good.
I got a contact there.
Okay, and then parking,
Good for me to make.
Off-street parking for residents shall be provided at a rate of at least one space per 3 co-housing units. Parking shall be provided at a rate of at least one space for 2 employees.
Let's see, maybe this is off, but
Is that additive? Or can we assume that that can be shared because residents are probably gone when employees are there?
It's written as added.
It is, yeah. One per 3, are we comfortable with that?
I'm not comfortable. with
I know, you're my parking guy, that's why I'm looking at you.
it. I mean, we live in Great Barrington, Massachusetts, not New York, and we don't have any public transportation.
so what are,
That's not true.
Well, we have some ride sharing now. It's getting better.
Yeah.
The Tri-Town
I saw,
Connector,
I saw a lady get off the bus yesterday at 9 o'clock at night.
yeah.
what are employees? Like what constitutes an
So
employee?
we were talking about maintenance plan management,
No, I know, but so like if you're
plumber.
contracting out,
If they have a cleaning
like,
service.
yeah, so is a cleaning service an employee when it's like you're contracting it out?
Sure.
And
By
so
implication.
what if you have like a crew come in to clean it because it's more efficient?
They got all
Come in
come
one
in the
vehicle.
same van.
I know, but it's
They might not.
by
They might know.
per 2 employees, so what if you show up with 5 people?
what if we just said, maintenance and employee parking, one maintenance and employee parking space shall be provided, just have a space designated.
Seems reasonable.
Just
Because, I mean,
Just a simple,
Despite the scale of the thing.
yeah, I mean, we're not requiring a.
At least one.
It's fine with
Resident
me.
manager.
I'm just asking the question.
well, I mean, to the point of, a plumber and his crew, or, the 3 guys are gonna come in their van.
And then you're gonna have,
Wherever they want.
if it's,
Not only that, there's likely gonna be parking available for their short
That's,
stay. And
so I don't wanna.
if it's
overcook it.
large, right, you're gonna have more people gone during the day. So
Exactly.
then more space is available for.
Everyone's gonna be gone during the day. Because this is.
So can we get back to the one? per
Not the
3
Thornwood, because
residents?
it's. they really
Yeah,
want people to
one
work there.
space per 3 co-housing
So-
units.
They really-
when we consider this, if we consider that both June and Eileen thought it was fair. They were good with the
Yeah.
parking.
Yeah,
That sounds like.
Yeah, but they have plenty of parking. They have plenty of parking up in,
The Windflower?
in Windflower. And they have plenty of parking at Thornwood, but I mean, and having this in Pittsfield is a different place than it is in Great Barrington.
Mhm.
So I mean, I don't know, I mean, we're talking about people who still, have to commute to work, have to go to grocery stores, have to do everything else that everybody else, every other resident in town does.
From Thornwood, it's an easy walk to the Price Chopper.
Sure.
No problem.
Yeah.
if you can get
As long as you
over
don't have to
to
cross
stage
Route
P.
7.
If you can cross Route 7.
So,
So get the state to build that.
well, okay, so 1 for 1 would
One thing at a
be,
time.
I think, a little much, Malcolm?
I don't think it is much, I mean, 1 for 1. I mean, I wouldn't argue for more than that, but,
One per unit, one per
per
resident.
unit.
All right, let's go there and we can come back to it.
And I don't think we need any employee parking. There's no employees, this is housing,
Yeah,
this isn't a commercial property.
I think that's probably fair too. I think we could strike the employee.
Well, we'll modify that for service contracts, employees.
I don't think we need to, I don't think we need to require any parking for non-residents.
They always park in the driveway.
Okay, so then moving down to bicycle parking, projects that provided less than 1 parking space.
This is Jeremy. Now it's
Yeah,
I mean, if you already got 1 vehicle parked.
I think it, but again, to June and Eileen's point, the bicycle was a smart thing to do.
Yeah.
They
I
both
think
said
we
it.
have to have.
This is pain-free. Bicycle parking.
let's leave the bicycle parking.
Well,
Store and lock, we have to get rid of that though, right?
Store sounds like inside.
One reasonably accessible space
loft doesn't seem. It's, who knows what loft means?
I mean, I'm not the cyclist, Jeremy, so like, should that be like like a
No, they,
covered kiosk or something to like, where the bike rack is located? Cause what we were trying to not do was create
inside,
a
Yeah,
space.
you
In the
don't want-
basement.
they
Yeah,
were really against that.
I mean, if I had a $8,000 bike instead of a car, I'd probably bring it into my.
I think I think all those people bring it into,
They bring it
but-
into their room, right?
but the problem is heavy e-bikes. Like, I mean, I think you can park those,
Cause I
Yeah.
do have a friend that has an e-bike instead of a car.
yeah, I mean, those things, I don't know how easy they get when they get heavy to. When you have,
70 pounds.
when you have a $10,000 bike that weighs, 10 pounds, I mean, that thing's.
Yeah.
It's movable, but when you have,
So, but what's the right,
Some
is
heavy
it just a covered space to store the bike? We didn't wanna create like a storage unit. I think that's what we were trying to
I
avoid.
just don't know if that's how,
This,
I mean, it's nice, but does that become really problematic, right? To then have to create that.
How about bicycle parking is recommended?
Listen, I don't think that building, like
You don't think,
bike port, carport, but a bike port is onerous.
oh, okay, then do it, because
I-
it's,
Yeah,
it's
you don't
it's
want it
nice
in
to,
the unit because there's not enough room anyway,
yeah.
and then outside it's going to look really yucky and cluttered and.
I mean, I'm with Pedro, like a little bike port.
Bike port.
Yeah,
Sounds
bike
cute.
port.
With a rack that you can.
Right, to lock up.
Secure your bicycle.
yeah, but I think that should be optional. If first of all, if people don't have bikes.
Yeah, the thing about bikes is that if you make it optional, nobody will do it.
yeah,
I think the bicycle should be required, but I don't think one per unit. I don't think we should have a number. I think we should say that accommodation should be made for bicycles.
Well, what this saying is that if you don't provide enough parking, you need to provide parking for bikes.
We're saying one.
Parking for bikes is not an issue, because you can put a bike anywhere.
Yeah, but
You can't lock it.
You can't lock it, and
Yeah.
you do want to protect it from the elements, because bikes, they
See,
go,
that could be your sole transportation.
and they go, they need a lot of maintenance if you keep them outside.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
practically impossible to maintain, actually, if you keep them outside.
yeah,
I think just having a cover is enough, and, these guys have to carry a little jar of quick
So-
lube or whatever,
So
But if you leave your car up, then the mice get in it. So-
not if you don't need it.
all right, so, no, I don't know if that's true, but anyway, so, bicycle parking, so provide accessible space to store and lock bicycles and leave it open-ended?
Sure.
Should we make it a percentage of the number of units? I mean, there has to be a number on it, because if
yeah, otherwise you're not gonna have,
25% of the units? I'm just throwing out a number
At
that's
least,
totally
yeah,
arbitrary.
right, and put the word at a minimum. or something.
Provide at least 25% of, provide bicycle,
One bicycle space for,
it's equivalent to 25% of the total units.
yeah, do you want us to write that? Chris?
And
I'll write it.
could we add the word covered bike parking? Because it could be anything, it could be a, temporary tent that can be taken down in the winter. Yeah, it could be,
Well, if
Okay.
you take the tent down in the winter, what do you do with the bikes?
well, they put them in the
They
room.
die.
Listen, I lived in New York while I was in grad school, at 280 square feet, and I had 2 bikes in it.
You were lucky.
Laundry facilities.
you must,
Project-
you must have been much smaller than.
Where'd you park your car?
Projects with 6 or more units must have a minimum of 2 washers and 2 dryers provided in a separate room in the development. Was that,
Laundry is weird for me.
I think
Yeah.
laundry is enormously important.
Because, I mean, they thought this was fine, but if you have 10
it
units,
seems low.
that's, yeah,
I thought the comment
This is a minimum,
yeah.
it's weird. I mean,
but I think this, we're establishing minimum standard.
Yeah.
now we have 1 laundromat, or do we have 2 laundromats?
One.
One,
No,
We only have one laundromat in town.
Yeah.
Laundry,
We
is-
have to have.
laundry is a problem.
10 units.
This is another one in the last sentence, we have to put a minimum of one dryer, one washer and one dryer for every 10 units.
Is that enough?
I don't think that's enough.
That's, I'm telling you, it's weird. I know it seems onerous and it's not my style to do that, but man. That doesn't seem like it's enough.
What were people-
Again, do dormitories have any requirement for laundry facilities?
I'll look. I remember the dorm I stayed in college, there was probably 150 people and there was like 30 machines.
Yeah.
There was like the whole basement was like
Yeah.
full of machines.
But 30 machines is like one for every.
No, but me too, but there was multiple,
Yeah.
but there was multiple
True.
laundry. Like you could,
Sorry, but it is
But-
college.
Buildings, yeah.
Ask me how often I did my laundry.
That's that too.
I did my laundry really off.
All right, common space, project shall have at least 10 square feet of common usable open space per unit. No project, however, shall provide less than 200 square feet
Each.
each.
The common space too was something that they didn't think was necessary. They liked it, they thought it was a really nice amenity, but they don't provide any for their projects. I mean, Windflower, I think, has some, but.
They don't have
Irene-
they don't have a common living, well, even common open space.
Yeah, they don't,
Just a TV room.
So, I mean, that's what
But-
I was
but isn't-
driving at, like
I
a
think it's not, but I.
living room.
If
But
I-
isn't indoor, couldn't that be like dining space
Sure,
too?
yeah,
Like it's
but
any of that,
The
right?
kitchen's not.
That's, but no, I thought kitchen was excluded.
I just remember them
Yeah.
making
Oh.
a comment that that kind of stuff could make things more complicated from a management, cultural point of view. And that in the end, too much space could take away from a unit. That was another comment that Jim made, I think, if I'm remembering correctly.
Let's
But
leave
200
it.
square,
I mean,
200
this,
square feet is not a lot.
we still
No,
got.
it's
a
10 by
unit.
10, yeah.
It's a unit. If you think about it that way, it's.
Yeah,
one
but
more
if
place
it
for
was
somebody to live.
Co-housing.
But if it's like dining, living, kitchen, everything but bathrooms and laundry and hallways.
You sound like a client,
I
Doesn't
coming
just,
to
seem
me and saying, I want this all in like 800 feet.
Well, it doesn't seem like a lot of space.
Well, okay,
It's
so
not.
10 square feet of common usable open space per unit. You got 20 units, you need 200 square feet, that's a nice patio.
right, right.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
Then
not a
the
lot.
inside space for your next 200 square feet is the dining room.
But you can get 200 square feet even if you only have 3 units or 4 units.
That's the combination of common.
Common and outdoor and indoor.
Right, less.
No project shall provide
So you
less
need at least 200.
Yeah, so 200 is the minimum, and as you say, it's a patio, or it's a kitchen.
Right.
And the kitchen's included.
This is not.
Yeah, I don't think it's, let's leave it. I think it's
Okay,
fine.
yeah.
It seems low.
Seems low to
Like,
me
it
too,
seems
but,
like
you know,
it's-
we're establishing minimum standards. here.
Yeah, so it doesn't seem
It's
that.
not onerous, so
onerous.
that's all
Yeah.
right. That's good.
Landscape areas that are less than 8 feet wide shall not be included. So what are you saying, like foundation plantings? Are not included in common space? Is that what that is intending?
I think it's like outdoor walkways, right?
Yeah,
That's what you're trying to avoid being included in it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Good
Okay.
example.
Okay, that's good, yeah. And then, the special permit granting authority made by special permit authorized deviations, okay. All right, then, where? So R1A, R1B, R2, R3, R4, and I,
So I question
okay.
whether there's any benefit to making this by special permit.
Anyway,
Anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about affordable housing here,
Yeah,
and we're trying to remove hurdles for affordable housing, and we're putting up a special permit
mhm.
for something that probably doesn't make sense.
No, I think in light of our first hour of conversation, that's a valid point to make.
However, if we go to town meeting and say that on the hill, any property by right can be converted to co-housing, is it gonna kill the whole thing?
If someone's got $1 million to put into a 2,000 square foot house.
No, I'm just saying a big house on the hill. I mean, I'm talking
There's some
about
vacant
being in
lots up there.
town meeting.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's a valid question. I mean,
There's
it's,
big houses in every zone.
yeah,
I know, but I'm just saying residential zone. I'm saying that, you know, there's a concentration of residential people in certain areas of the town and they're protective of their,
You know, the only places I don't know that I would question is R2 and R4, right? Because they're way out there. And this is kind of housing that I would think we would want to kind of concentrate close to things.
Well,
I agree,
Windflower is
but-
in the R2
yeah.
or R4.
yeah,
Sure.
that's the point.
And my neighbors have, you know, it was a young couple who bought the house next door to us, and they've got like 6 or 8 people living there. Essentially, it's co-housing, no permits, nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not a problem. You know, they park their cars in the driveway and end of story.
I'm all for it. I'm just making conversation.
yeah,
Because I know Chris wants to stay here till 10.
Now we would
I'm-
just need a lot more parking, don't you?
I'm for it too, but I just don't wanna see it shot down in town meeting because we didn't consider some
Well, I mean,
potential
again,
opposition.
we,
Well, you've yet to put this out for
Exactly.
public hearing.
Thank you.
This is just the first
exactly what I was
draft.
I
gonna
know.
say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
we
think
should go,
can-
with-
I
we
think-
should go with what we want.
Okay, yeah, I'm fine with that.
So as vice chair, if I can make the recommendation that we all go home and consider how what's written actually addresses existing buildings.
I think that's
what's-
fine.
how
We all need.
How does it,
Is there anything else on that
If
page? or is
somebody
that the
comes
bottom of the page?
forward and, you know.
That's it, okay.
How are they gonna add 200 square feet of common space, for example?
Because you're right, because it's likely gonna be
So is there separate,
conversions.
are there separate considerations for existing buildings that?
You get your own common private
well,
extra space to yourself? Or
No,
you're sharing it with everyone?
No, it's shared
It's just
in
an
the
open
code.
space and that's how big it's determined by how many people are staying there?
Um,
I'm thinking this outdoor space, 200 square feet, and you're saying
It
a
doesn't have to
patio.
be outdoors.
well, both indoor and outdoor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it says,
Because I'm thinking if I live on the 3rd floor, I go to my patio outside somewhere in a little corner. I think that's kind of.
Anyway.
No,
I get, thanks for the question, I understand it now, and I think you're right. So this is why I think we need to consider whether or not this thing addresses existing buildings, you know, like, does it really make sense? I haven't looked at it in that regard, just when I was reviewing it the other day, it struck me that it might not reflect what is probably gonna be the majority of projects that we'll see of this type of use, which, you know, is gonna be in existing buildings.
and
So if someone were to decide they wanted to build a new co-housing facility, what building permit would they get?
Multifamily, I don't know, it's a good question, I guess. It could be, I guess it would be, it's not really I guess it is multifamily, because B R2, but R2 is. It would be a residential permit, I mean, I don't know. It would be a residential permit from multifamily.
Can we ask our building inspector
Yeah, it's a
that
good question.
question?
I can look at the code and tell you.
The question is what?
If someone wants to build something from scratch, what element of the building code does this fall under?
I think it's R2, it's an R2 use, right, because it's congregate, yeah, it's congregate dormitory living that's permanent. R1 is transient, so it wouldn't be a hotel use, because this would be permanent. It's R2 would be the residential building permit.
But this is, the primary use of this tends to be transient.
Not really, I mean.
What that they were saying,
not by design.
that's what, no, but that's the use that construct is.
Only because there's no mechanism for them to make it permanent.
But I think what I heard from them was that most of their people are transients.
But they're not 30 days or less, it's more like 3 or 4 months or.
Well, it could
So
well be,
that's,
but
technically, it's not
that's-
transient.
yeah,
Seasonal.
That's, I get your point, but technically it's not transient. So as I explained, R1 is transient specifically, R2 is not.
yeah, I just don't want to create something here that runs into conflict with the building code that you can't get a building permit for.
I think you can because it's in, again, it's congregate living, it's defined in the building code. It's, but we've been asking.
Okay,
Yeah, no, it's
If I'm in there, I'll ask him.
Okay.
What he thinks.
That'd be
I'm
good.
sure he's happy to.
So
Anyway.
reuse, what if you have a property that, like, the zero setback, like downtown properties?
If it's,
Like, and now you have this outdoor requirement, right? So if you're gonna.
But again, it's not necessarily outdoor, is it?
yeah,
If
no,
we do
but
say
we said
indoor,
both.
no.
It says both, it
It
says
has to be
both.
both?
Well,
We said both.
the way it's written.
Yeah,
Maybe
it's
it's
written
rooftop.
both right now.
Maybe it's a rooftop terrace.
Yeah.
But that's special permit granting for it.
I know, but then it's a special permit, right? And so, like, do you wanna?
Again,
I see what you're saying.
that's one of the things about existing buildings.
And then also, like, I was wondering about also with like the parking requirement in like the downtown corridor as well. Like, it seems like it's a lot of parking, you know? So if you're gonna have a lot of people, like, especially if you want like local workforce, you know, like, do you need parking, right? If it's like one of those downtown properties necessarily, and how much, you know, like the one per unit might be high.
So let's think about that, because that's the kind of like vetting we all need to be doing on it. I think that's a good point. All right,
I think as a whole, I mean, we should consider existing housing and what we need to do, but we can't consider everything. And that's what the special permit process is for. So if there's a unique building somewhere that really doesn't have any outdoor space, or if there's a unique building that doesn't need any common bathroom, it doesn't have any, so that would be a need for special permit.
Well, the parking thing can be brought to us.
Yeah.
Without special permit, they can just ask.
As part of the site review.
Exactly, they could ask for parking relief, so, but everything else.
I mean, is there any way that we could grant relief from the requirements without a special permit, just as part of site plan review?
Yeah.
Should we do that?
I don't think so.
yeah, I
Uh,
think
Unless you're very specific in the bylaw about what the requirement or allowance is.
But we just add a sentence to the bottom of it that says any deviation from these regulations can seek relief from the planning board during site.
Yeah, I mean, we
yeah,
already
a
have.
waiver of or something.
But we want to be as specific as possible, but, so that people don't have to get a special permit.
Right.
But, if they have a good project and it doesn't meet what we've outlined here, then they can always come back and get it.
Provision, we can waive certain provisions, right,
but it,
Chris?
it seems to me that all parking, anyone who wants to deviate from a parking requirement, that should really only be a site plan review anyway.
Don't they have to, doesn't
mean, in
parking
this-
deviations have to get a special permit?
In the scenario that
Number
Jeremy is
three.
talking about, though, I think our underlying zoning or what do we have right here downtown?
Visa,
No, the overlay, the village overlay. Right,
Oh,
it
yeah.
relieves you from the parking,
VCOD.
yeah.
But would doing,
This doesn't address.
I think we should stop on this one, or
Underline.
otherwise we're gonna be here all night. We still have, but let's, Chris, if you don't mind sending out the red line, and then we can all think of all the potential pitfalls.
Mhm.
And then we can regroup. Chris, I believe you raised this one at the last meeting, the amendment for lighting and possibly modifying the provision to address historic buildings.
Yes, last year, the town added section 64.6 lighting. And in those requirements, it does say that the Bottom of the light source on a pole light shall be no higher than 15 feet above grade, but that conflicts. I discovered with what you already have in section 7.9.5, which has 17 feet in the frontage, front setback, and 25 feet elsewhere. So they have like three conflicts in the bottom.
Mhm.
So that should be addressed.
Can you repeat the number of the section that is conflicting, please?
6.4.6, item
Oh,
4.
you have it here. Never mind. I was gonna look at it.
Yeah, it's called that.
I'll put it on the screen. Six four six, item 4 says 15 feet.
Or bottom of the light source.
7.9.5, which is probably something that predates all of you.
Yeah, okay.
Regarding large-scale commercial developments. Has 17 feet within the front setback and 25 feet elsewhere. So. Conflicting requirements, so I think we need to figure out which
So
you want to apply where.
I would suggest that 6.4.6 could be modified, except in the case of the provisions in 9.5. If I've got that reference right.
Mhm.
Because in a large scale commercial, you're going to have more heavy truck traffic, you're gonna have bigger parking lots that are gonna want higher poles so that you have fewer poles lighting the space. So I could see that as an exclusion to the height requirement. That'd be my initial suggestion.
Did we not have somebody come in and give us feedback on this pole height recently? To the tune of it being too low and forcing a
Well,
large array of lights?
that was my comment at either the last meeting or the meeting before, where the town has been looking at modifications to the town hall campus and recently repaved the senior center parking lot where we had thought we could add additional lighting. And to meet this bylaw, 15 feet required a lot of poles in order to adequately illuminate the parking lots.
So what did you do?
Does that defeat the purpose a little bit? Right, because we're trying to get less light.
Short lights to have adequate illumination means you have a lot of poles because those cones of light are very small.
So what did you do at the senior center? Nothing yet.
It's, I mean, there are some building mounted lights were added on the footpaths, but they're still just one big floodlight.
So what would be reasonable in the senior center case? 17 feet? Would that have worked or?
I don't know, I didn't run the numbers. Just by way of comparison, the pole lights at the co-op parking lot, I think are 20 feet.
What are the streetlights?
I think the streetlights on Railroad Street are 14 or 15.
And on 7?
20, I
probably
think they're
20 or
20,
20 plus.
yeah.
So a highway Cobra style light is probably 20. A smaller residential street, 14, 15, 16 is probably okay.
A lot of it,
Commercial parking lot, 17 to 25 is a fair range. So that's what we
what would
already
you
have.
call the senior center commercial parking lot? Cause like the example I prefer is the Daniels Art Center parking lot. But that was designed specifically to accommodate the poles in island space, and if you're doing a retrofit at the senior center, that's a little harder, right? Cause you're not trying to make the parking lot bigger. But
Right.
those I think are less than 15 feet and quite nice and low impact.
That's beautifully landscaped.
So I think in terms of conflict, though, the source of light is not necessarily the pole height, but you were having trouble finding a light that got you to 15 feet.
Bottom of the light source.
Yeah, I mean, that would give you could have a pole height and it's 17 feet.
No,
Yeah, the bottom of the light, the fixture, so like where the light,
Shall be no higher than 15 feet above finished
the,
grade.
the fixtures often have like a gooseneck and then a finial and a pole. The pole may be 20 feet tall, but the
Oh.
light is mounted at 15 feet, right?
But the issue at the
Which
senior
is-
center was the bottom of the
Number,
light.
so you were gonna
issue, right?
need 10 poles or something.
Say that, yeah. The bottom of the, yeah, and, yeah, 7.9.5 reads the same way, the bottom of the light source.
Um,
So maybe this section 6 doesn't apply to large scale commercial development, Brandy, maybe that's the fix, I can.
But if
Let,
it's,
let me work with that, how about we start there?
okay,
The second thing that, the other thing that I brought up, maybe at the last meeting was, I was struck during the December holiday celebrations, how wonderful downtown looked with the holiday lights and whatnot, and specifically, how nice the old St. James Church, now St. James Place looked with uplights. And I thought it was quite attractive, and this is just me, thinking that historic buildings maybe could benefit from well-focused uplighting, and that we shouldn't preclude that for historic buildings.
Like in front of our town hall.
I said well-focused.
Well, they're focused on the front steps.
So, you know, we have
Like the fire
it's been
station.
interesting to see the old fire station on Castle Street as the scaffolding comes down. Now you can see the rebuilt tower, which is beautiful. Nice to see again.
And they really wanted to uplight that.
They would have preferred to uplight the tower, which could be a nice feature in a historic downtown. So I put that out there for your
How
consideration.
does that work with dark sky?
well, that's the point.
it's not, I mean, I think like, we can have a practical discussion, right? Like, is downtown such a lost cause at this point between the acorn fixtures on Railroad Street and the acorn fixtures on Main Street and the Cobra heads that the DOT put in? I mean, that there's a lot of light.
Yeah.
If we look
This
out
is
the
not a
windows
dark
right now,
town.
it's not dark down there.
Yeah.
So I mean, Chris and I talked about this a little bit, like, maybe there is a provision we add where, you know, except as recommended by the Historic District Commission.
Ooh, I wouldn't give them.
No.
I wouldn't.
Or
Well, I mean,
except as
I mean, the
where,
problem with the
to
historic
maintain the
district.
historic aesthetic, it's deemed, I have seen that in many other codes, that there's a provision for historic,
But what about a cool modern design that all of a sudden you have this pillar and you want uplighting and, I mean.
Yeah, no.
Well, that's the problem.
For historic buildings, not for
Yeah.
Yeah.
modern buildings. So for historic buildings.
I
Well,
can send you some language, I don't think I did send you already that
Randy,
suggestion.
I think that's a good idea. I think it should be the historic commission and not the historic district commission. And the historic commission already declares things historic for several.
Do you have a conflict of interest here?
Not for advocating.
Or where the planning board deems due to historic character, it's
Yeah, I
critical
mean-
to historic character.
Yeah, I mean, there's already things like the room limit, CPC. There are several things that where the historic commission is asked to weigh in on.
In my opinion, you would have a standard, and the building that you're talking about would either be in the local historic district as a designated HDC property or on the National Register. If it is, it can avail itself of well-focused uplighting.
Well, focused
If-
lighting.
If HDC approves, if it's subject to HDC.
Well, yeah, anything in the historic district, which is a limited number of buildings.
So obviously that'd be HDC.
So
How
Chris,
about coming,
If
how
you're on
about,
the, if you're in the downtown, you're on the register, you can do uplighting.
where, does DAC have a voice in this at all? DAC.
Zach.
The Design Advisory Committee, see now you're using acronyms, Jackie. Welcome to the planning board.
Yeah, you had to ask me too. That was very good. Thank you.
I'm just trying to clarify.
But
The
what-
Design Advisory Committee has jurisdiction over special permits and certain exterior alterations in the village center.
Yeah,
But what about,
Getting rid of all.
what about houses on the hill that are on the historic register?
That's,
I'm thinking that this has to happen by district. And so
So
we're
it's in the
talking,
downtown or in the village center.
Yeah,
So, Chris, would you think?
can I just add?
No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I would think by district and not have a requirement to be registered. I don't think you need a requirement for, I mean, if we're dealing with downtown, most of these buildings are, they're historic to me, they're historic.
They're all historic. when-
So-
Well,
Yeah,
and I
but think
think that
about,
was-
think about what the impact would be if every building downtown had
Had-
uplighting.
Exactly.
Okay, which is my next point, the commercial districts have foot candles specifically in it, we can require that it
I'm
maintain certain.
not
intensity.
aware of any means of modeling uplighting. I'm not aware of.
But
that, so
the
The
fixture
wattage of the
itself,
fixture.
the fixture itself has a foot candle reading.
The only concern there is that, with bulb technology changing in LEDs, that's much harder to get a fine point on, so it's,
You could find yourself a wash and light going up when you're driving through downtown.
I mean,
Well, I mean,
there
I
are
thought I
some,
heard the board say a few minutes ago that downtown's not, that Great Barrington is not a dark. So,
Yeah, it doesn't mean we shouldn't strive to be.
But that's
It'll
not
be like
talking
Las
about the
Vegas.
Sky, we're talking about the sky.
And we're focusing on the buildings.
so I think there's no question
There's no subtlety.
that we want to address the conflict.
Mhm.
And it sounds like there's some room for an item 6 for historic buildings or.
Downtown buildings but
I think we have to consider Housatonics downtown
Be
also.
careful, just be careful what you're doing. That's all
can't they apply for special permit now for uplighting? So what's wrong with that?
Yeah, why don't we just
Special
keep it
permit.
special permit?
Well, I know, we don't want special permits, but I mean, we don't wanna have everybody in town.
I'm with Chris, man. I think the church where I work looks awesome with the light.
That's one church, it's a church. And it was Christmas time.
No, but even
It
when
has
it's not
special
Christmas
meaning.
time, it has the same lighting. I think it looks fantastic. I think the rest of the churches on Main Street would look fantastic. I think the buildings along Main Street would look great on Railroad Street. I think it would look.
I
fantastic.
think it's lit. If everybody gets their nice uplighting because they love their building, it's going to be too high.
Let's all take a walk after the meeting tonight.
Right, well, I'll send you something to consider next meeting, and you can
I've got some language I'll send
throw it
you.
in the trash or do whatever you want.
You could add time limits too. Put candles and time limits.
Great.
All right, thanks.
Let's overregulate.
So, number 4, then moving on, so we can actually end our meeting this evening, master plan review.
Okay, well, I actually have something to say, but now I'm exhausted. And if I am, you all have faith.
Welcome to the planning.
Thank you very much. I'm now speaking in acronyms and, okay, it's great. Okay, so what I wanted to do is revisit our timeline for this project. Because I haven't gotten anything from anybody in particular, except something from you a long time ago about tree committee. That was great. But when we were talking about doing this, we're talking about having community meetings that follow the meetings that we're having now with all the different committees and boards, et cetera. So I'd like to say to all of you that we need to start getting from you your reports on the different boards, committees, councils that you've met with. I propose that I give you kind of a draft model for delivering this stuff, the material, kind of like a narrative, and also using our status. I mean, trying to make it simple for you guys, but I'll send this document for you because I was working this out, and I'll talk to you, Brandy, and we'll just go through this, but I'd like to know when we need to get your reports in, because I know I'm still working with committees that have not met to deal with some of the stuff that we've asked them to address. So how, can I see a show of hands of people who've all reached out to everybody you're supposed to reach out to and
So-
you've gotten feedback?
I think every meeting, if you look back through our minutes, we've had this agenda item on consistently. And so every meeting we've been doing a verbal report out. So in the record is a report out of
It's
who's,
not, it's, okay. Here's-
just as far as who they've met with, not content.
Well, then if I have to go back, I'm going to ask people just to send me where their status is
Sure.
on their committees, because I don't want to have to go back through all the minutes and
And-
review that.
We have the spreadsheets that Malcolm put
Oh,
together.
I've got all of that.
She's got it.
So let me just do. let me
Should we
just-
go around quickly and just, we can go around quickly and just
Let's just-
tell you what your status?
Yeah,
Send it to Jackie.
let me
Okay.
just, no, let me just keep talking, and so we can do this piece. So Brandy, I have you down for the Agricultural Commission, Select Board and Parks Commission.
Yep.
Have you heard back from all of them?
Yes.
Okay. Chris, you have the world's longest list of things to do, which is everything, including the town manager and the DPW superintendent. Where are we with your needs?
I have not looked.
Okay, well, sometime soon would be, no, whenever you can get to it. You own
I
that
will,
list.
sure. I thought the update was for other boards and committees.
Okay, well, I'm just using you as one place. I'm sorry. The next one is, mine is basically planning board and cultural council. We finished a long time ago. I'm now trying to transcribe some of the notes that we have, because when we've identified areas that we should address, there's some discussion that followed, and I wanted to make sure that I represent the discussion. Because you're saying one thing and we're saying other things. And I want to be helpful. So when we go back and look at things that we say are still active, or there's a footnote here, we really should address X or Y. I want to make sure we get that. So that's why I'm saying, this was complicated to do the planning board, because you guys all, as you know, we talk over each other. And trying to understand what everybody's saying, and you speak in these little codes, it's fun, but I'm learning a lot. But it's really great to pull the information out there, and it would be nice to get some anecdotes here. Because I know that when I went to the cultural council, they certainly didn't know they were expected to develop a master plan for public art.
Mhm.
And they were thrilled, and some thought, oh my God, we don't have the staff and we don't have the money. So you get these things going and they're going, how come we don't know about this? So, I mean, I don't know how many people ran into those situations with the other committees, but this is a good opportunity just to flag, just
Mhm.
anecdotal statements that are fun to get in, that be useful, that when you've had these conversations, write it down, and I'll send you this stuff. I'm not going to belabor this too much right now, but this is what I'm looking for, because ultimately, one is having community meetings and being able to talk to people about what's going on, what people are actually seriously interested in. When you've been meeting with these folks, have they said, this is something we haven't done or wasn't in the master plan, and we really need to think about it going forward, and we actually think this should be done. Or if they say everything is fine, or we've accomplished everything and we're happy with the goals as pre-established in 2013, just keep going, we're fine. But it would be nice to get the story behind your conversations. So I'm just looking for more, because that's one, talking points, promotional points, and something if we have a meeting, ultimately a town meeting, and we do a presentation of what we've uncovered. And also, when we last met with the select board, we were talking about having these community meetings, and they were interested in hearing back from these meetings what people want. So this is our chance to get out into the community, highlight what the towns and committees involved are working on, and then solicit from the group what their concerns are. I mean, it's all a process, but the more information you can get to me, the better. So I'm just going to, when I'll finish going through what everybody has on their plate. But I would like to be able to get at least one or two graphs about, if you've gone through all the different points, because everybody has X number of sections, or for example, Brandy, you have a community, that's the big title, but it's also about sustainability. And commerce is economic opportunities. Well, everybody touches some of this stuff throughout, and it'd be really interesting to be able to see which committees are actually doing this stuff, which aren't, who's really committed to it. And you can tell by the energy when they talk to you at these meetings, oh my God, we don't have the money, we don't have the time, we don't have the staff, we can't do that. Or that would be great, and we'll direct our energies in that direction. I mean, this is just we're stirring this pot, and it's really the focus stir, and I'd like to be able to capture as much as I can. Your tree report was a good stuff, it's like a model. So anyway, and I'm actually talking to DAC, the Design Advisory Committee, a little bit, because they're referencing a couple of these things, and there's some confusion about what DAC is doing and what the Historical District Commission is doing, and there's a lot of confusion around signage. So we need to get some of that clarified, and who's got responsibility. Jonathan, have you met with the Council on Aging yet?
No, they've never responded to anything, and I've had some health issues, so I've missed it. They only meet once a month, and I've missed several of
And
those.
yours is all about health and quality of life.
Interesting.
That's your specialty now.
I will continue to try, though.
Okay. And Malcolm, you have the Historical Commission. And
Yeah, and we haven't met. We're meeting on the 22nd, and I'll have something before. our next
yeah,
meeting.
okay, good. And then the Historical District Commission too?
We've already met, but I haven't, I mean, there are only 4 items on their list. So,
That's good. Okay,
um,
great. Pedro, I have you for Conservation Commission and also the Tree Committee. So how are you with Conservation Commission?
Well, Conservation, I showed up at their November meeting. They didn't have a December meeting. And they said that they're gonna meet at the January meeting and come up with some ideas. However, the other day I was in Chef Evans' office, Conservation Commissioner, and he suggested that I just meet with him directly. And he can. So I'm maybe gonna do that because he doesn't have a lot
I
of
mean,
faith that the commission will come through with a nice report. So I was planning on doing that.
It's also that you'll find that the chairs are not necessarily in agreement with the fellow members, and the fellow members are not, it's really
Well,
interesting.
with conservation, we're lucky we have commissioners, so he'll know exactly what, and he's great. I mean,
That's
Shepard's
good.
great. I like Shep a
And he
lot.
knows more than any of the members.
Yeah, he knows, yeah, and he knows what he
Well, that's
wants,
good. And
what he
then,
wants to do and what's been done.
and Jeremy, where are you in this process?
I didn't have anything because I wasn't at that initial meeting.
I know, you're
But-
sitting here.
Which is weird.
Lighting
Why
up.
doesn't Shep have Chris's list? I mean, why doesn't, Jeremy have Chris?
Yeah, this is Jeremy.
Yeah, sorry,
But I was
Yeah.
supposed
I'm
to,
Pablo.
right, Brandy, was if you didn't get anywhere with parks, so it was gonna do parks.
Yeah, parks.
Okay, I'll put you're down in for parks.
And, well, I've already met with parks.
But
Oh,
she already met with.
Yeah, I've
you're
already
so-
met with parks.
well done.
And, select board took up energy committee and economic development committee because neither are viable anymore.
Okay,
And we've reviewed those as well.
so what, so it's trying to get a read from each committee about these specific issues that they're tasked with doing, which some of them didn't realize they were. And it's an interesting look at these committees. So it'd be really great to flag any major issues or concerns that these committees are talking about. Even if it's off point, which is like, I have a cultural council that says, well, we'd love to do this, but we have no money. And we only have 4 other people and we don't have the time to do all of this stuff. And who's gonna, anyway, so you go down that road. They also, some will have questions, some will have like, I'd like to really do this and not that. Why am I doing, so there's that. And then again, it's the idea of meeting with the community, and if there are priorities that coming out of these different groups that they say to you that we're really interested in going forward and doing this, we've actually want to really address climate change, and we didn't do that. That's not in our purview, but we'd like to add it to our purview. We start getting things like that, then it's information for Chris to deal with. And when we're looking at what we, do we do amendments to the master plan, or do we just know that this is something that we need to be talking about? So, and then it'd be interesting to see if this was a worthwhile effort for them, because it's somebody reaching out to the committees and saying, what have you done and where are you? And we'd like to, what would you like to see more of? And it's just a feedback operation. And then finally, it just, all of your notes will feed the community conversation, I think. well, because at least we can then go back to individuals and say, you know, this is what this committee's been working on, but we need your help, or what do you think about that? Or they come with something that we have not addressed. And I'm sure it's probably we've thought about what they've thought about, but it's a chance just to take the pulse this year.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair.
So timelines. When do we think we want to do the community conversation?
I think that is way out in the future. And
Way beyond the town meeting.
Yeah.
beyond town meeting for sure. So I think what we run up against is that,
It's cold out there.
no. Yeah.
Well, there's that.
But just that it's taken longer to engage the committees that were assigned tasks. I mean, I only was able to really sit down and have the meeting with the select board on Monday, so, and they committed the time and we went through the whole list, but I think we've sort of roughly outlined before that it would be nice for our annual report that goes to town meeting to include a status on the master plan. It'd be a 10-year status review. And so I think if we can like focus on that as an interim deliverable,
Yeah.
just recognizing that it has taken a little bit longer to get to all the committees. I think that's realistic. And I don't know timing wise, Chris, when would we produce that report? Would that be a March time? Yeah, so just to give it time to get to the printer and all of
Well,
that.
and so it'd be great to get all the comments in
Yeah, we wanna have our existing
our,
committees.
our
set
serious
by
drafts by mid-February. So if we say February 15 or something like that. So just get your notes
Okay.
in, and then we can talk about it and I'll chew on it. We can all have another crash course discussion on this thing.
And then I think that we wanna make sure, it's funny, my daughter was saying, oh, we're going to select board, and I said, well, we're gonna, do this update, and she said, how many committees were there? And I don't know, there was like a dozen committees. She said, well, how many committees are there now? And if you go and you look at the website, there's like 30 committees.
Yeah.
And so I think we will want as a next step to think about how to like have an initial engagement with them, and is that in parallel with the community, or do we let the committees who sort of maybe have a pulse on some of these issues be the initial conversations? I think.
And then also there's I mean, this isn't in our purview, but some of these committees aren't very functional.
Sure.
And, or they're struggling, or they have same people sitting in the positions forever, and it's, and it would be great to get some fresh blood in the involvement. You always need more involvement, but I know some of the committees aren't. They're barely getting to meetings.
Great, Barrington has a wealth of volunteers that get things done, but as a volunteer, it's on the time that you are able to give to the community and.
No, and then there's there are millions of hardworking people, but it's tricky.
And they weren't in the plan, so there's not like an implementation that is easy to follow. And so, an update, a revision of the master plan may provide future guidance to some
I
of
think
those.
if we write this in a way that it shows that what people have been doing and what they've been working on, and I think it's a good
It's a
portrait of
tremendous
it
amount of
now.
work that's been done. It's,
Yeah.
I mean, it's really it's great. Okay, so mid-February, we should try and have all of our reports back.
That would
We'll
be
look for
great.
an email from Jay.
Yes, and you will get an email and it'll be kind of like an outline of what happened.
Okay,
It's only 10,000 words or less. With photos if possible.
For each item?
Chris, do you have a town planners report?
No,
Do we have any board or subcommittee updates?
I have a question.
Yes, issues or concerns? Go.
The Berkshire Money Management just went, that building, we had a site plan review when it turned into a boxing building. But we haven't seen it since, have we? And it's gone through a couple of renovations.
It was sold.
Yeah, I know, but why didn't we see it? How come it doesn't come to us?
Why?
Change of use?
I think
But
it's like
commercial.
commercial.
zone.
Okay, commercial zone doesn't have to.
Yeah.
If it's a commercial.
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
know what permit was pulled or whether that should have triggered site plan review or not, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just curious, because I mean, when it went from, Gans bedding to a boxing studio, we had a site plan review and we went through the whole thing and all the parking and, now it went from a boxing studio to an office. And we haven't seen it. So I was just curious as to who's, if it triggers the site plan review, who would spot that? Is that the building inspector should? spot that? Okay. No, that was my question.
Jeremy?
I don't think I have anything since. No, because I think, CPC had met before our last meeting.
Jonathan? No? Peter?
At the last December meeting, I read this from the tree committee. The tree committee recommended the planning board alter the language in the bylaw as it concerns business permitting requirements around trees. Essentially, that trees planted in fulfillment of permitting requirements must be replanted if they decline or die.
Don't we
So they're
usually,
making a request for us to add that to,
Mm-hmm.
I guess, the Route 7 landscaping
Mhm.
section of our bylaw.
Mm-hmm.
So can we look at that next meeting?
Yeah.
I'll remind everybody.
because in site plan, we usually say that, though, right?
Mhm.
That's included in site
If
plan, but
if it
not in
fails.
the bylaw.
It's
Yeah,
gotta
we
be,
put it as a condition. It's not.
but nobody does it. It's sad. Jackie? Anything for you?
Nothing,
No?
nothing.
Okay, nothing for me either. So then we would move into citizen speak. Do you have anything? Yeah, Claudia, come on up. Come on. What's on your mind?
You said that should.
Thank you for being so patient.
Hey, thanks for,
And you didn't fall asleep either.
Claudia Shapiro, 78 Egremont Plain Road, January 11th, 2024, Planning Board Citizens speak for the record. During the airport 2020 special permit application that was unanimously denied November 23rd, 2020, the Assistant Town Manager and Director of Planning and Community Development, Chris Rembold, sent Denise J. Garcia, Director of Aviation Planning, Mass DOT Aeronautics Division, on September 23rd, 2020, the following. Hi Denise, thank you for your return call / voicemail this morning. As you probably know, the owner of the Great Barrington Airport, GBR, has applied to the town for a special permitted as a legal aviation field under our zoning bylaw. It's currently a non-conforming use. This is contrary to the consistent claim by the town, the airport, and brought into land court by the plaintiffs that the airport is illegally pre-existing non-conforming, something I disagree with. The town has a few questions for now. Our next meeting date is October 5th, so I would appreciate hearing from you before that if possible. On September 28th, 2020, Denise Garcia, DOT, sent Chris Rembold, CC to DiCarlo Jeffrey, DOT, Garcia Denise, DOT, subject, regarding airport questions, attachments, response to GBR Town Manager questions 9/29/2020. Morning, Chris. Judge, please find the Aeronautics Division response to the questions you submitted to us last Wednesday, September 23rd. Please note that my responses are based solely upon the limited information provided, which could change entirely given additional information or changed circumstances. Any legal ramifications should be addressed by town council. Question 5. Can the town regulate the time of day or day of week that planes can take off or land at the airport? Answer, no. The airport is a daytime, daylight, and visual rules, VFR, airport based upon their available navigational aids and airport lighting. The town and the parties involved all knew the airport could not be restricted, yet restricted anyway and intentionally. No one is using the airport, and I mean no one. None of the patrons, including avid pilots and airport owners, James Jacobs and Kathleen. I'm giving you each and the assistant town manager a copy of the letter I sent the Berkshire Edge regarding the 8-town school merger David Scribner would not print. And I'm adding my concerns that October 28th, 2023 special town meeting voter approval of the draft merger finalized will include the flight school permitted in April. A copy of page 81 and 82 from the Berkshire Regional Transportation Plan and quote, municipalities that host these airports, coming around full circle for me to the 2008 legally binding contract between Berkshire Aviation Enterprise, Great Barrington, Massachusetts Aeronautics Division, and the FAA, a crux in my struggle. A copy of my January 8, 2024 Select Board meeting citizen speak time, and I'm giving Kim Shaw a copy of my planning board December 14, 2023 citizen speak time.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Anything more? You're all set? Okay, okay, thank you. Any virtual participants have any citizens speak? Raise your hand. All right, seeing none, we'll adjourn at 8:25. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Rainey.
Have a good evening.